a brand that generates millions.
Running towards the record.
And carries a nation's hopes. Who would want to be in charge of that?
Impossible to please everyone.
New NZRU CEO Steve Lancaster is in to talk about the rugby reset, including sacking friends like Scott Robertson.
It was really hard, actually. I won't shy away from that.
Then there's dealing with a sponsor who's currently on fraud charges.
It's just a space that's a bit sticky to get into, so I'd rather not comment.
And battling AI when it comes to doing deals.
One of the stark trends that we're observing is there is a big shift to increased investment across the board in AI.
So how can he grow the game and balance the books? Welcome to the NBR Podcast. I'm Simon Shepherd. Steve Lancaster, look, thank you so much for coming into the studio. Taking the CEO role, I think that you'll never be able to please everyone. Is that right?
Yep, that's true, regrettably. Thanks for having me, firstly. It's great. I always enjoy the opportunity to talk about our game, talk about our business. So I appreciate that. Impossible to please everyone. And I think that's a reflection of the competing demands of the role and the business. We have a one strategy for the whole of game. It has 4 pillars. Those 4 pillars span from the community game and grassroots right through to our teams in black on the world stage. Yeah. And there was just a lot of inherent tension within those priorities, and so trying to balance those is the constant juggle.
So you've, in the last 10 years, you've been at the grassroots community level, haven't you? And now you're going into the overall role. I mean, what's the transition been like?
Transition's been pretty smooth for me. I mean, you're right. For the last 10 years, I've been working in the community space and working in the space of supporting and investing in our provincial unions, our stakeholders to deliver the game. But for 15 or more years before that, I worked in high performance and professional rugby. So I've got a really good breadth of experience across the game, from community and grassroots through to high performance and professional rugby. I've sat on the executive team for the last 5 years at NZR, so I've been across the whole of business, delivery of strategy, key decisions, both in terms of revenue and expenditure. So it's been a reasonably smooth transition. I guess I also had the benefit of 6 months in the interim role. So,
let's talk about that. I mean, in the interim role, one of the first things that happened was that Scott Robertson got sacked as coach. Now David Kirk led that, I guess, publicly. But what was that like?
That was really hard, actually. I won't shy away from that. I mean, one of the beauties and tragedies of working in sport for as long as I have is that you end up in roles where you're working with really good friends a lot of the time, and Scott's one of those. And so that was a really difficult situation. It's not the first time I've been in that position in sport, though. And look, you just have to separate what's happening in the business with what's happening in terms of a personal relationship, and trust that the strength of your relationships will get you through that over time. But it wasn't easy. New
Zealand's not a massive ecosystem in terms of sport, right? So there's 1 degree of separation a lot of the time.
Probably 2 degrees in New Zealand and 1 in sport. So we do all know each other. As I say, very tough process. But look, you're right. Led by the board, absolute clarity on the change that needed to happen, and I think we sit here now, 6 or 7 months on, and would say that that we got through that pretty well, and we're in a good space now with Dave Rennie and his team leading.
We'll talk about him a bit later on. Let's talk about the shake-up in terms of management at NZR. So there's a new CFO, a new commercial officer, and a new combined structure as well. Yeah. What is the goal of that reset?
So that's a good way of framing it, and I'd probably flip that around and say actually there's a new combined structure. That's the starting point. So we have brought the business back together, so we have one strategy, one organisation led by one CEO with one executive team. So that's the starting point, and then over the last 12 months or so, we have set about building that executive team to ensure that we're well placed to deliver on the strategy. The real reset for our business has been the advent of a new strategy, which coincided with the arrival of a new board at the beginning of last year, and everything has flowed from there. So we've got real clarity, right? We've got a clear, simple strategy. We've got a very clear mandate to deliver it, and now we've got the team to do that as well.
All right, let's talk finances then. Most recent one was a $7.5 million loss, but an operating profit of $700K. So a lot of the focus goes onto that loss line. But how would you describe the current financial performance of the NZR?
It's a really good question. I'm glad you've asked it, because a lot of people do just focus on the loss figure without understanding the nuance that sits behind that, right? So the number we're most focused on and most proud of was the small profit, $700,000 operating profit. What that signals is that we've been able to control our costs over a period of some years now. The $7.5 million reflects a deliberate approach to investing in long-term commercial growth.
Right.
And with Silver Lake's investment into the business, that's something we committed to. We're fortunate that we also have the means to do so. And so we see that as separate to our operating result, which is based more on a BAU.
So the $7.5 million loss is actually investment in future commercial revenue.
Right. So in its entirety, really, that is the extent of our investment last year in long-term commercial growth. Now, some of that investment you get a positive return on, and some of it you don't, and that's the nature of investment. And so we're in that journey now as well.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a sec in terms of the Silver Lake deal and what it was supposed to be for. Is there a particular part of the organisation that's eating too much money? Too many overseas tours? Because the costs have gone up to 311, even though revenues increased to 304 million.
Yeah. Your very first observation was that you can't please everyone. I think this is a question that highlights that.
Right.
So I think everyone has an opinion on which parts of the business are consuming too much cost.
Yeah.
But again, it's constant. There's a constant balancing act for us. The reality is that the more we grow revenue, the more we spend. Sport in general is a really hungry beast, right? You're in a competitive endeavour. Yeah. Everyone is looking for advantage.
Yep.
So we have demands around our teams in black, which are the economic engine that drive the business. We have demands on our community game. This year we're investing $33 million in women and girls rugby.
Let's take a half-time break to ask that if you are enjoying the NBR Podcast, independent journalism, please hit that subscribe button. Okay, back to the team talk with Steve Lancaster.
We're investing $40 million into our provincial unions, which is direct investment into our community game. So again, we constantly have to continue to grow revenue and seek to maximise revenue, because we can then channel that back into the health of the game.
You just mentioned the girls and rugby investment. I mean, is that a growth area for NZR?
Very much so. Yeah, very much.
Because are the boys flatlining in terms of engagement?
No, they're not flatlining. So, I mean, this year we're actually seeing some positive growth again and participation across the board. Look, we do have some challenges around boys and men's club participation. Again, not unique to rugby. It's very much a sport or a team sport challenge. But to come back to the women and girls prospect, like the huge opportunity for us, we're seeing really strong numbers, really strong growth. We're investing in that, and we think it has a really long tail for the game.
Talking of investment, let's go back to the Silver Lake deal. So there was in that deal 39 million. I've read earmarked to grow international fan revenue, I guess is a way of saying it. Has that been spent, and have you had a return on investment for it?
Yeah, so that is being spent. When we talk about the $7.5 million loss last year and the deliberate investment in commercial growth, that's the pot that's coming from. So we ring-fenced that at the time of the investment, and we've been systematically investing that now. Are we getting a return? I would say yes, we are. It's not an immediate return. And one of the things that's unique about our business, and certainly unique to a lot of other businesses in New Zealand, is that we're a cyclical business, right? So a lot of our agreements are locked in over multiple years, 4 to 8 years. And as those come due, we would expect to start to see some return on that. And that's what we've been investing in, right? What we're investing in is that we're growing our reach. And there's a lot of talk about global reach, which is important. We're also very invested in ensuring that we remain relevant and connected to New Zealanders. And over time, we want to see an uptick in terms of revenue coming back on that. Now, there are a lot of factors at play in that as well, right? But I would say that we are getting a return. It's just that you're not seeing an immediate return on that.
Right, in actual dollars, is that what you're saying? But you're talking about global reach. One of the initiatives of the Silver Lake deal was NZR Plus as a sort of like a content centre, specialised content, trying to bring everybody there. And you got views for that content, but you didn't necessarily translate into dollars and fan revenue, did it? So that's been retired. Is that correct?
Yeah, you call it retired. We would say we've consolidated it with allblacks.com because we have merged NZR Plus with the allblacks.com website. All Blacks and Black Ferns website now is under its new brand. So it's a good example of that commercial growth investment, right, where we've learnt a lot along the way. Some of it has worked. It started very much as a content hub, where we could enhance our broadcast product, provide content to the market, pivoted under Craig Fenton's leadership of NZRC to broader distribution of content, but using NZR Plus as the starting point for that. And now what we've recognised actually is that we need one source of direct engagement with our fans, with our consumers, one digital source, and that is the website. So we have folded NZR Plus in with allblacks.com, Black Ferns website.
Right, okay. Are you going to be producing that specialised content anymore, or is it just going to be outside? Are you going to contract it out? I mean, how's it going to work?
Well, those are questions that are yet to be answered. And again, we make these decisions on a year-to-year basis in a lot of ways. But yes, we are, is the short answer. We will absolutely be producing our own content. There'll be unique content through the website. As I say, though, it's a combination now of content, news, fixtures, engagement, merchandise sales, all of those things in one hub.
Yeah.
So it's a different approach, but again, we're learning as we go.
Because you also have to try and get the engagement that you get on like YouTube and all those social channels, and get those to channel into your new app, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We do. So I'll give you an example of that. Though. So we've only just very recently relaunched that channel, and we had our highest traffic ever for the French test.
Right.
As an early litmus test, that was a pass. And for a tech project, it went without issue. So that's a big wipe the brow moment for us as well.
Okay, well, they might be unique.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about another revenue stream, and that is sponsorship. So there's a couple of questions here. First of all, the Ineos saga. They pulled their sponsorship. NZR sued. The final settlement is done and dusted. Was that incorporated into the revenue for this year?
Yeah, that was that was a good outcome for us, right? We didn't have any revenue impact on us, and in fact, we were able to move really quickly on and securing new partners.
Okay.
And so we've been able to we brought on Toyota last year. We've got some new partners this year. We've got Hilux partnering with our domestic competition. We brought on Ray White. Zero have joined the stable, which is great for iconic New Zealand company. Yeah. So what we actually, it's a classic example of turning what could have been a negative into a positive. We were able to move on. We reached settlement with Ineos. It was it was reached reasonably swift order, and we were able to replace them quite quickly.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about front of jersey sponsorship. That's the Ultrad deal.
Yep.
So that finishes at the end of 27.
Yep.
So are you out there looking for a new person?
Yes.
Or have you extended to Ultrad an extension?
Yes, both of those things.
Both of those.
So we're talking to Ultrad. We've been through an exclusive negotiation period with Ultrad. We've come to the end of that, which has enabled us to now get into the market. We are still having a live conversation with Ultrad at the same time as talking with other partners.
Right.
Lots of interest, which is really pleasing. And again, we've already partnered with a stable of really good global brands. And so what we're seeing is that the All Blacks brand in particular, but all of our teams in black, have really high standing in the market internationally. Okay,
so and the curly question with Ultrad is that given that their founder is subject to a tax fraud investigation in France, nothing to do with your deal, but something else. How does that weigh on NZR's mind in terms of extending with them?
We're obviously aware of it. We're across it. It's in front of the courts, so firstly, it's not something I can or would want to comment on. But secondly, we just need to let that play out before we come to.
So there's no particular contractual thing which says that NZR can get out of extending to them because of these kinds of issues.
Well, no, there's not, but it's a negotiation right now. So that sponsorship, as you noted, expires at the end of next year. We're in a renewal right now. If we don't agree terms, then both parties walk away. So we're not obligated to extend, but we're certainly not in the space we're saying we don't want to either. They've been a valuable partner for us. We've enjoyed working with them, and we'd be very happy to continue to work with them if there can be a meeting of the minds on that going forward. Would
you be happy to continue working with them if things go against Ultrad in the courts over there?
Yeah, again, I don't want to talk to that because it is before the courts, and it's just a space that it's a bit sticky to get into, so I'd rather not comment on that.
Are you finding it harder to attract international sponsors, given that we've had a lot of geopolitical sort of uncertainty and Trump tariffs, all those kinds of things?
What we are finding is that the market is really challenging. As I say, we're in market now for some big properties, and we have lots of interest, which is really reassuring and really pleasing. But what we are hearing and observing consistently, and frankly experiencing ourselves, is that the global commercial context is incredibly tough. Costs are increasing all the time. As a business that puts large numbers of people on aeroplanes and flies them around the world, we are living that challenge. The other thing we're seeing actually is that when we look across the global commercial landscape, is that there are big chunks of investment being allocated into AI and future technology, and a lot of that investment in the current context is having to come from other pots, and so that is stressing sponsorship budgets
Interesting.
around the world.
So the dollars are going towards the AI build out and not to the sponsorship of the All Blacks.
Well, it's not binary
Not
at all, right? But it's just one of the stark trends that we're observing is there is a big shift to increased investment across the board in AI, and that's one of the contextual factors that we're looking at. So as I say, we're encountering a lot of interest, which is really pleasing. We have options, but we are consistently hearing and experiencing that it is a challenging global economic context.
Is this you're talking about a big contract here? Are we talking $50 million a year?
Depends on which currency you're talking about. But look, you could be getting into that ballpark. Again, these are negotiations. We just got to get through the negotiations. Everyone has different price points, and we're working on that.
All right. So when will that be decided?
Well, we would like to be in a position by early next year to know who our primary partners will be. Front of Jersey is one of them, but we have a range of partnerships and properties that we're in market on. Yep. So we're not rushing this. You don't rush these sort of transactions. You have to, and look, a lot of building partnerships at this level is actually about building partnerships. You have to get to know people. They have to get to know us. There has to be a meeting of the minds. This takes time.
It's not just a pure transaction, right?
Yep, this is a good fit. Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Yep. Pursuing overseas tests, I mean, they bring in the dollars, right? So I understand from the results that, like, the All Black test against Ireland in Chicago raised $6 million, and there's the US test against South Africa and Baltimore. More teams in black spending more time overseas to get more money. Is that correct? Is that the trend?
I think if you look at the trend, the All Blacks in particular, because they've been the ones that have been playing the majority of fixtures historically over time, have always played the lion's share of test matches overseas in recent memory.
Yep.
This year we have, across the All Blacks and the Black Ferns, I hope I'm getting this right, but I think we have 29 test matches across the All Blacks and the Black Ferns, a lot of rugby. 2/3 of those will be played offshore.
Yep.
So that means there's still a third of those test matches being played in New Zealand across the All Blacks and the Black Ferns. All Blacks have 4 home tests and the Black Ferns have 5. And again, we constantly juggle this balance between ensuring that we are providing enough content into the domestic market for our fans to engage with our teams, to watch them play live, to watch them play on our time zone, while also maximising the return out of those valuable teams.
So that's the tricky balancing act, isn't it?
It is. It is. It is. And you talk about the US, sorry, just to come back to that as well, because I mean the US is a really important market to us, and you will see over recent years we've very deliberately taken fixtures into that market, and we intend to continue to do so. So we will play in Baltimore this year. You will see us play other fixtures, particularly as we build into the World Cup in 2021.
Right. So do you have a particular market in mind for the World Cup year in terms of the All Black test?
No, not yet. So again, we know what we're doing this year. We're having several conversations about outer years. But look, a couple of things in there, right? One is rugby's a growth market for World Rugby. As a good corporate citizen of World Rugby, we want to support that endeavour and that strategy. And World Rugby very much walk alongside us in taking games into that market. Also a really important market for New Zealand rugby, and for New Zealand actually for that matter, right, in terms of brand awareness, affinity with our teams and our games. And then finally, we think all the time about how we prepare our teams in black to win, particularly at World Cups. And so building familiarity for the team in the US and that environment is also really helpful. So there's a number of things at play there in terms of why that's an important market.
In terms of the domestic, well, let's call it the Trans-Tasman market, okay? So what sort of competition are you feeling from what the NRL has done? So they've done this massive $5 billion long-term broadcast deal. That could seem team numbers expand, competition for players, competition for fans. Is it a growing threat for rugby in New Zealand?
It's a challenge. Like, it is a challenge. I wouldn't say that it's not, because that would be obviously insincere. But look, I firmly believe that there's room for more than one coder. These are not binary propositions, right? It can be true that the NRL is strong and that rugby is strong, just as it can be for football and other codes. And if you look at strong international sports markets, US, Australia, Europe, multiple sports, multiple codes exist, and they all thrive. So we're very much focused on ensuring that rugby is thriving in this part of the world. We don't spend a lot of time looking over the fence at what the NRL is doing. We commend them and we celebrate it, the growth of the code and the visibility of it, but we don't think that necessarily has a binary impact then on people not supporting rugby.
Right, so there's no study being done or sort of, stats which say it's either or, you're losing fans to NRL or players to NRL. No?
Look, I watched the Warriors on Saturday night, right? But I also watched the Opiki final on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm not unique in that.
Yeah. Where do you think the growth for rugby is going to come from in New Zealand?
Well, and we're very focused on this, right? We have to ensure that the junior base of the game is strong, right? That kids come into the game, have good experiences in the game and enjoy the game, because they will either stay in the game as players, participants, they will stay in the game as volunteers around their clubs and their communities, or as coaches and administrators, and ultimately they'll also decide where they put their money as adults once they have discretionary income. So we're very focused on the strength of the game at junior level. As I said before, we have certainly have some challenges around junior boys participation. Yep. We'd like to see that growing as the population grows. We're not seeing growth that's commensurate with population growth, but the women's and girls' participation at junior level is outstripping that well and truly. Right. So women and girls participation, huge opportunity, but actually just really resetting and it's not even a word, recognising, but recognising the importance of rugby being relevant to New Zealand communities, to New Zealand societies, and that starts with kids. Okay,
but the jewel on the crown is next year. And so how important is prepping? I mean, you've got a short runway as a CEO, short runway as a coach and team.
Yep.
How important is a great performance there for that overall growth goal?
Yeah, it's really important, right? It's a World Cup played essentially in our market and on our back doorstep, so in our time zone. And you see, like FIFA World Cup, right? It's just been a huge success, being highly followed and supported in New Zealand. Big part of that's time zone, right? Being able to watch the games as they
it was occur. Very handy.
Yeah. So really important for us that the All Blacks are visible, that people are able to watch them play, and that they perform. Same is true of the Black Ferns as well, right? We have a World Cup in the same market 2 years later. But it's a World Cup, right? And so we're doing everything we can to support the team to prepare now. They've made a great start over the last month. They're going to build again through South Africa over the next 2 months and into the States. And all roads look like they're leading to that quarter final, don't they, with South Africa? So that's that could be do or die.
Yep.
But look, World Cups happen once every 4 years. We hope we succeed. We're doing everything we can to succeed. If we don't happen to win it, we're comfortable actually that we've got enough content now. And the advent of the Nations Championship is a big part of that.
Right.
So now we've got this format being played every other year, where you North versus South, and you crown a champion. So there are other opportunities that for our teams to continue to perform, to be elevated on the world stage, and ultimately for that to connect back to New Zealand and for people to see them, aspire to be with them, be part of them, and keep the game strong.
All right. Steve Lancaster, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Simon.
And that's it for our conversation with Steve Lancaster. As usual, any social clips used are listed in the show notes. And thanks to content producers Tane Turner and Antonio Lim. For early access to new episodes, subscribe at nbr.co.nz. Up next, the expensive reality of AI begins to bite. It's our special NBR series, The Lawyers. I'm Simon Shepherd. We'll catch you then.